Hello, I'm Anna, the Yarn Randomizer, and this is episode 61 of the Yarn Randomizer. And it is the 1st of November today, and this is a knitting podcast. Um, I'd like to welcome folks who have been watching and everything. Welcome back and everything. And I'd like to welcome folks who are just stumbling across this. I hope you find something interesting here as well. It's pretty much knitting all the time. And so if you're here for the knitting, I'm here for it too. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as the Yarn Randomizer, and you can find me, that's my Gmail address too, is theyarnrandomizer@gmail.com, and all that information is down below. And the reason why I call myself the Yarn Randomizer is because I pick my yarns from randomly from my stash using a spreadsheet that has all these numbers on it. And I have my husband pull a number every once in a while. And so then I have to figure out what to do with that yarn. So it's kind of a different way to pick projects, but at least I get no analysis paralysis trying to pick something. I get to just get something presented with something, and then I have to figure out what to do with it. And I really have fun doing that. And so finally, I'm looking at my notes over there. Please like and subscribe. It helps other people find us and everything. So I think that's all the preliminaries. Now, last episode, we hit a milestone. I hit a whopping $400 for income for the channel. Yeah, the big dollars for the podcast. But for anybody who's watching regularly, I've been rotating through as kind of $100 increments come in for channel income. The first 100 last year I gave away as a gift certificate to somebody watching. The next 100 I did a donation to charity, so I supported Crash Course with that. And then the next 100 is for me to pay for, I'm being very distracted by messages popping up there. The next 100 was for me to help pay for utilities for this place, help keep the lights on. And then finally, start all over again with the next 100, which would be the 400 that we earned. And so we talked about it last time. Folks comment about their favorite local yarn shops or online yarn shops and everything. And so the comment that was picked at random was Anna Bing. And that's Anna Bing 6721 on YouTube. So if that's you, get in touch with me via my Gmail address, and let's figure out how to get that arranged. So congratulations, and I really hope you enjoy getting 100 to spend at your local yarn shop. I feel really strongly about doing what we can to support our local yarn shops and our online yarn shops and everything, and basically just helping sustain this community and everything. So I think it's so important to give back with what happens with the money coming in on YouTube and everything. So yeah, so that's it for the giveaway. There will be a nice skein of yarn up for the offing if you hang around for stash management. So if you're interested in that, check that out. And in the meantime, we'll get right down to it. So what am I wearing? I am wearing one of these sweaters I made a few years ago, and this is the Lento. Which I don't think I'm pronouncing correctly, but it's a really nice sweater, and it is by Jonna Helen. I think it was published in a line of magazine at some point, but you can buy it independently on Ravelry. And so what's so nice about this sweater is it has the same kind of fabric texture as a ranunculus, but it's got basically it's just plain knit. It's got a rolled over collar, raglan seams here, and then otherwise it's plain as can be. So here is the sweater. And down here I have it come down to, let me back up a little bit, about down to my hips. And I did like 3/4 sleeves because this was about as much sweater as I could get out of 2 skeins of fingering yarn. So as an example, if you look, I think, yeah, I have it in there. The size I made was size 4. So this was as much sweater as I could get out of the size 4 with 2 skeins of fingering yarn. So the fingering yarn is Hypnotic Yarn Plush Sock. I had 2 skeins of their colorway, which was called Born to Be Mild, and so it was a kind of a light creamy color with bits of brown and blue in it. And then I combined that with some Garn Studio Drops Kid Silk in a dark brown, and I love the tweedy effect of those combined, those 2 combined yarns. And I picked up that Garn Studio because it's not typically available. There are probably some places you can get it here in the US, but I picked it up from Wool Warehouse in the UK and just got a great deal. This was back in 2022 when I bought it. I bought a whole bunch of kid silk, and I've really enjoyed working with it and got it for just a bargain when they had it on sale there. Now, right now with the tariffs and everything, I don't know what kind of surcharges there may or may not be buying from Wool Warehouse if you're living in the US, but it's worth. I really recommend them. They have a flat shipping rate and they ship very quickly, and they always have amazing sales going on there. I've picked up a lot of different Garn Studio yarn that they've had on sale there. So, but yeah, so if you're like the feel of the fabric of the ranunculus, but you don't want to do the round, that kind of combined yoke, it's partial round and partial raglan. You don't want to do those texture stitches. This is just a nice plain knit sweater that basically is made in the same way with the large needles and using a fingering combined with the mohair. So yeah, highly recommend the pattern, and I really love the way it turned out. So yeah, so let me bring my notes back up. So yeah, I think that was all the notes I had to cover there. But yeah, it's a quick knit. I took a while to knit it, but I think it was because I just sat it down for a little while and picked it back up. But I know I've made like a ranunculus with 600 yards of yarn in like less than a week. So it would be less than 2 weeks. You could definitely make a sweater like this in pretty quick order. So yeah. So other than that, so that's what I'm wearing. And so now we'll get into finished objects. And I have finished my Park City cowl here from, this is Ann Budd, one of her designs, and it is really a fascinating design. Now, this is made up, this is Yarn Randomizer pick. This is the 18th yarn that was picked this year, and this one is from a shawl I made. It was one of Jimmy Beans Wool's craft vent projects, I think possibly from 2021. I'll put that in the notes. But this was the festive wrap that it was used for, and this is a dead simple wrap as far as it just has 3 different texture patterns, and you just switch the colors as you go along. And so what I did was I took all the leftovers from this and used them in the same order in the cowl. So you can see that from one end to the other, or maybe hold it this way. I think whoever did the color picks for this from Jimmy Beans just did a bang up job on it, or maybe it was Amber O'Brien, I don't know. But these are 3 different yarns. There's Neighborhood Fiber Co. Rustic Fingering, Moondrake Co. Soft Fingering, and Madeline Tosh Merino Light. And this, I just love how this turned out. And so the interesting thing about this pattern is that it's got this Channel Island cast on and cast off. Now so you can see this it kind of produces a picot edge with sort of a line, looks like a line going through it. And the cast off looks very similar. And you get this kind of picot edge with sort of a line going through it. And what was interesting was the Channel Island cast on, there was no question about it. It was easy to look up and find a video and do that. The Channel Island cast off, it's got at least 3 different implementations. So one is in this pattern. I found 2 others on YouTube that did not do the same thing as the one in the pattern did, but and also on the first step in the pattern, there's a little bit of information there that's confusing. But basically, I'll tell you, on that first step, you should just ignore references to knits and purls pearls basically, and just do what it says, but just ignore what it's saying about knits and pearls, and you'll get it, it'll come out correctly. So yeah, it's a really interesting cast on and cast off. And so yeah, so my big tubular cowl, and this is about twice as long as what's called for in the pattern, so I like the extra length because it really scrunches up. I'll stick a picture in of me wearing it. I think the only feedback I would have would be I might consider putting a little bit of elastic in the guard, in like at the on the inside of the cast on and cast off, and make it maybe pull in a little bit perhaps, but we'll see. So I'll put in the picture and stuff. But yeah, this is a really simple knit and a great scrappy project. Great way to use up yarn, and I used up every bit of what I had left. I think it was about 437 yards of yarn. So between all the different colors. So yeah, that was a really nice knit. I kind of obsessed about this one over this past week and kind of hammered that one out. So I'm really happy with how that turned out. So next is works in progress. So no other finished objects. And so works in progress, the big elephant in the room comes out first. So since the beginning of the year, I have been working on this Stephen West blanket, and it is the Bubbly Blossoms blanket. Let's see if I can get this out of here. At this point, it's humongous. It's almost 85% done. And for those who are new to this, basically I took a blanket pattern for a big round blanket from Stephen West, and I figured out how many stitches were in the entire project, and I divided that out over the year. So I have to do about 540 stitches a day. Doing that, I'll complete the project in the course of the year and have this blanket done. So right now I'm going to show you what I'm working on. Working on the outer edge right now, and it's these big kind of bumps on the kind of waves on the outer edge, and I just finished the third color there. And so now what's going to happen between now and in towards the end of December is I'm going to repeat these three colors again. And then at the end of December, I think I have about 8 days to do an I-cord cast off all the way around. So pick this up. This is really getting huge. Try to show that. Yeah, so there's all these different texture sections in here from the center on out. And I think I've broken into the fourth skein of 2 of the colors. I'll be breaking into the fourth skein of the other 2 colors. Last year, the blanket I did took around 4,000 yards of yarn. We'll see if this one's just as much. But yeah, so this continues as expected. And it's a little hard to hold these these waves up. There we go. But yeah, so I'm really excited to get this done. I'm not going to do a year-long blanket next year, but I have another project that I think will be my kind of background year-long project for next year, and I'll talk more about that later. But yeah, because there's only 2 beds in the house, I've got last year's blanket on one bed, and this blanket will go on our bed. So we'll be all set for knitted blankets for beds in the house. And I don't think I would knit this as a gift. It's, it's funny. 541 stitches a day. I mean, when you think about it, that's less than 10 rounds on a sock, right? Because if a sock is, 60, let's say it's 60 or 62 stitches around, 10 rows would be 600 and something, 620 stitches. So this is less than a commitment than 10 rounds on a sock a day, but still it does take a chunk of my time. So I'll be glad to have this done and ready to move on to using more of my knitting towards other things other than blankets, I think. But I'm glad I did these. I'm glad I did them the way I did, because I am absolutely certain I would have felt burnout on just trying to crank through one of those projects, because it's just so massive. So yeah, so making good progress on that, coming up on 85% complete. and everything. So, and it was, 554 stitches per day. Sorry about that. All right, so now the next thing that I've picked up and started working on again, I have a tendency to do this. I'll start something, set it aside for a bit, and then pick it up again and drive it to completion. And so this is my honeybee vest. Let's see how to hold this up there. I love this honeycomb pattern. And so this one I'm working on, and this is made with leftovers of a shawl I made a couple of years ago with yarns from Bare Naked Wools. This is the leftovers, mainly the leftovers from their 2023 mystery wool along. And so what I'm doing is I used another whole skein that's in this Jacob sheep color yarn, and I'm just kind of striping in the different colors that I have left over from that shawl from a couple of years ago. Now I'm down to the point of making increases for the armhole, and so I just have a little bit more to go on that. And then what happens is you pick up the two shoulders, and this is a vest that I'm working on. You pick up the shoulders and knit the front down, and then once you get long enough, you combine that and work it in the round the rest of the way down, and then just do the ribbing, and that's it. It's done. So yeah, looking forward to making some quick progress on this. This is on size, I think it's on size 6 needles. And yeah, it's a very simple pattern. I am doing the increases different than what she called for in the pattern because I didn't like what it was doing in the pattern. And so I'm doing something a little different. And so we'll see how successfully that turns out. I'm mainly inserting the increases inside the first stitch at the edge and altering the pattern as needed to keep it lined up on the front. It's interesting because if you look in the pattern pictures, you can see that there are bubbles that are wider on the front in certain areas, and it's because the increases are being done in the middle of the pattern. And so I decided I didn't want to do that and I was going to approach it differently. So we'll see how that works out. But yeah. Is there anything else about this one? Let's see. You can see all the yarns that are in it in the project page, but they've got, it's a Shetlandia sport, an East Frisian sport, a Wensleydale sport, and an Oxford sport, and everything. So just a big variety of yarns in this project. So, and I have some spare yarn in case I don't have enough to fill it out if I end up using up all my leftovers. But I think based on my spreadsheet that I do have enough, but we'll find out. So that's the Honeybee Vest by a name I can't pronounce, Johanna Malin Skula daughter. I know I'm not pronouncing that right, but yeah, it's a neat little vest, and I thought it would look really nice in these natural yarn colors. All right. So now the next project that I had underway that I picked back up since last time is my Break of Dawn shawl by Janina Kallio. And so this is just a simple shawl, and it's a garter shawl. I'll show you the front of it. So I made a little bit more progress. I have, I think, another set of eyelets to do, and then some more garter stitch rounds, and then start doing kind of a diamond pattern of lace in the outer part of the shawl. And so I'm getting close to getting done with this section of the shawl. And right now it's just doing these eyelet rows every so often. This is 100 Ravens Iacos in the colorway Granny Smith. Can't you tell? It's such a green yarn. Since it's 100% merino, I was reluctant to make socks out of this because I might have made socks and done some really interesting texture pattern there. But I decided to go ahead and make a shawl, and it's just a kind of a crazy color. And somebody mentioned to me, said, "Oh, that's going to be great for St. Patrick's Day." And I thought, "Oh yeah, that's true." That'd be my green item to wear. But yeah, it's a wild color, and but yeah, the garter is working up really nice on these size 7 needles with this yarn. This yarn is about 400 yards. It's 400 yards to 100 grams, and so it's a nice plump fingering weight, and it's producing a really great texture. And so I'm really looking forward to getting into the full lace section. Now, I made a spreadsheet. I need to make a t-shirt that says I made a spreadsheet, but I wanted to get an idea there. I wanted to see if there were, kind of how many repeats I could get out of the lace pattern that's on the outer edge on this, if I could do more than what's called for there. And it looks like I can. I think I'll be able to do an additional whole set of additional full repeat of the lace on the outer edge, but I'll keep track of that. The spreadsheet lets you do that because you can see what percentage of projects complete, and then you can measure what percentage of the yarn you've used up. And so if your percentage of usage of yarn is less than your percent complete on the project, then you have some slack to work with. If your percentage of yarn used is higher than the percent complete of the project, then you're not going to have enough to do what you have currently planned. And so that's the thing I really like about making a spreadsheet and stuff. So the spreadsheet will be linked in my project. I'll make sure it's there, but I can link it in the show notes as well, so you can see what that looks like. But yeah, so that's coming along, and this is the kind of the project I'm pouring most of my attention in. It travels well, although I will say, when I first picked this up and started knitting it, I had to knit the same like 3 or 4 rows. I think I had to rip them out, redo them like 4 times, because I kept missing one of the increases at the edges, and I'd get to the next point where I check things, and I'd have an odd number instead of an even number, and I'm like, oh, not again. It's like, oh, that was a little frustrating, but once I got out of that kind of jag, I was able to make good progress. So I'm hoping we'll see a lot more of this next episode. So, all right. And so, let's see. So now, I had a project I had started last time, and I didn't end up talking about it. Now, last time I only had the sort of the cast on in the neck complete. And it was still sort of in a state where I was like, am I going to do this or not? But I'm definitely going to do it. And so you may question my sanity when you see what this is. And so I have my random pick for this year, that was the 9th random pick, it was earlier this year, was this prairie yarn from Madeline Tosh. And so you can see that. And so this yarn is a single ply lace weight yarn. And you can see the fineness of that there. And it's not a weak single ply, I will say that. I can be a little rough on yarn. I have definitely broken yarn that's been single ply before that wasn't well spun and stuff, but this stuff, I've knitted an entire cowl that had some really stressed areas in it, where I was doing these huge cables in it with this lace yarn, this same prairie stuff, and never had any trouble with it breaking. So I feel like it's more sturdy, even though it is 100% merino and single ply. But this is the Birthday 61 sweater by Ankastrick, and so I'll put in a picture of it. And so this sweater calls for lace weight yarn. And I am knitting it up on I think the size needle it calls for, let me see. Projects. It's kind of bracing. And it's funny how when I was looking for sweaters with lace weight yarn, I didn't, even though this is in my library, I was not seeing this pattern for some reason. It makes me curious about how these things are listed and everything. But it calls for size 0 needles for the entire sweater. I'm knitting it on size 1.5 because I am a tighter knitter. Let me see if I can show this to you. So this, for example, this is the raglan increases in the top of the sleeve here. Let's see, can I cover myself up and show that? And so it's a half fisherman's rib. So it's lace yarn on size 1.5 or 2.5 millimeter needles, and it's done in half fisherman rib, which means I'm knitting into the row below every other row. So that's what the outside of the sweater looks like, and then you can see the inside and that characteristic fisherman rib look. And she says in the pattern you can think of this as being reversible, and so you just be careful about how you do your weaving in of ends. But yeah, there it is. There's the top. The little bit of neck is done, and it has wide raglan sections, 13 stitches wide, and it feels great. The one thing I was concerned about was the way the fabric would feel between the lace weight and the size 1.5 needles, and I'm very happy with the fabric. And so basically I'm going to see how much sweater I can make out of 2 skeins of this prairie yarn. It is a little less than what's called for in the 3rd size, but I also knit sweaters, that just come down pretty much to my hip bone is my preference. So I think I may have enough for long sleeves. If I don't, I'll simply knit to my hip bone for the body, and then knit, see how far I can get on the sleeves and everything. So maybe it'll be elbow sleeves or 3/4 sleeves or full sleeves, depending on what I can do. But yeah, this is kind of a crazy project. Let's see if I can show you that's the whole start of the back section, or the front, one of the two. Oh yeah, because the short rows, hold on for a second. Let's see. Yeah, that is the back. That is definitely the back section, because the short rows are on the other side. Yep. Yep, that's it, the back. But yeah, and so I'm really liking the speckled nature of the yarn. The colorway is Abiquiu, which is appropriate because that's where Ghost Ranch is near and everything. And so the colors are appropriate to the environment as well. A nice reflection of that. So yeah. So I might be a little crazy knitting a full sweater on size 1.5 needles in half fisherman's rib. But I highly recommend going to the pattern page and looking at other people's projects. It looks great, and so yeah. And so I am thinking that this will be my year-long project for next year, and that is I'll try to make a measured amount of progress on this through the course of the year, and not feel like I have to kind of power through this, because I know it's going to be slow going and everything. So we'll see how this turns out. So yeah. So yeah, it's almost like, I must be a glutton for punishment knitting a sweater out of lace weight yarn on tiny needles. But I think it'll turn out really cool. So all right. So those are all the works in progress. So the next thing, I'll talk about my sort of daily task of knitting in 10 ends a day. And so I wove in all the ends on my cowl and blocked that. But I do have some more stuff in my finishing basket that I need to get to. So I need to make a concerted effort on getting back to those things and getting the finishing work done. And so I plan to get some of that finished up before next episode. Then yarn pick number 24 for 2025. And if you watch the previews, you'll know what's coming. And so this is Desert Vista Dyeworks. This is their yarn called Viso, which is the kind of usual 75-25 machine washable wool. This is a self-striping colorway, and it comes with a variegated kind of rainbow colored mini to go with it. And so I made a video about trying to pick the pattern to do for this, and so I'll put that up in about a week. And you'll see you can see examples of what socks look like made with this yarn. And this little mini does some really cool stuff for the heels and toes and everything. But the question was, what do I want to do with it? So, and you can tell in the video of picking the pattern that I was kind of like, was uncertain, a little uncertain. The one thing about a self-striping yarn is that it definitely narrows your choices. You can't just make anything. There are lots of shawls and things like that that just simply will not work with a self-striping yarn. So it kind of narrows the field quite a bit. But after I looked at the patterns and thought, obviously I could do some vanilla socks and make them self-striping and everything, do the self-striping socks. But ultimately I thought, let's see, I think, oh yeah, and I do want to talk about that too. I thought I might try to make a muscle burrow with this. So I'm thinking what I'll do is I'll do my initial like cast on and increase and then get a feel for how it's looking. But the idea would be to use up half the yarn with the kind of cast on and then work through half the yarn and then do the middle part of it in the mini skein and then work the rest of the skein of the self-striping. But it's going to depend on how the stripes look on once you get to full circumference on the muscle burrow hat. So I think it'll depend. If I don't like the way that looks, I'm going to switch back to doing self-striping socks, but I'm going to use a pattern I write down. It was called Vanilla Bean Striped Socks. Now, this is not the Vanilla Bean socks from the Crazy Sock Lady. This is a pattern from I didn't put their name up, but I'll put the pattern information in the picture up here. It's basically a little slip stitch pattern to use with self-striping sock yarn. So I'll use like my favorite toe up pattern, which is the ringwood socks, and I will do them with this self-striping, but do the slip stitch pattern there to give it a little more interest. But yeah, muscle burrow is the first choice, and it'll depend on how it looks. So now I did want to mention that sadly, Desert Vista Dyeworks just closed due to she's got a lot of stuff going on with her family and with her own health and everything. And so she just announced that they were closing, which is really sad to hear because she had beautiful self-striping yarns and everything. So yeah, so I'll knit this in honor of her efforts and everything and show off one of the beautiful yarns that she's made. So yeah, so that is yarn pick number 24 for 2025. And I'm planning to get that cast on here pretty soon. All right, so now let me see. Acquisitions. So I have been really good about not buying yarn. So, and for some reason, and this happens sometimes, just not in the kind of headspace for buying yarn right now. I've been more interested in kind of figuring out other things right now. Now, the one thing that I did do, I want to show you on this birthday 61 sweater. You'll see the stitch markers are these very fine wire rings with a bead. And I used the same one when I was working on the cowl. And I have a variety of stitch markers, but I really came to the realization that these are the type of stitch markers that I really, really like. And so I did not have enough of them. So I actually bought a few more. So I have all of them kind of strung up on here right now. Let's see if that will focus. Let's see. But I will share a link to the shop I picked them up from. It was Heidi and Lana. And so I picked up some more of these, and you can get different color wire, different color beads and everything. But I really like these markers because the wire part that goes around your needle doesn't spread stitches apart. It's very fine, but the bead really keeps it in its place and makes it easy to identify. And the different colors you can use to mark different parts of your round as you're going around it and stuff. So yeah, I picked up about 18 of those in the orange, kind of lavender and black. And so that was that. But I did, it's over there. I'm gonna have to go grab it. I did have something else I wanted to show you. Let's see. Okay. So I had mentioned that I had a Dale of Norway sweater, and so I do. And so I was going through clothes up in the attic and going through boxes and everything, and I found not only this but a couple other sweaters that I made myself that were tucked away. So here is this Dale of Norway sweater, and see if you can see. Yeah, the label is Dale of Norway. And I found this in a thrift store, I would say about 6 or 7 years ago, and it basically looked like it had hardly ever been worn. And so not only is it this incredible overall design pattern and everything, this thing is also fully lined here as well, all the way down the sleeves and everything. And so I wore this past weekend, and it was just lovely to wear. And so yeah, so I highly recommend checking out. You can see the bottom design as well. Highly recommend. If you have not gone to shopgoodwill.com, I highly recommend going there and using key search terms and stuff for things. I found this in person at a Goodwill that we were at. My husband is a real, his entire career was being a high school teacher, and now he's a pastor. And so he was always kind of dealing with, having a limited budget, and would frequently buy clothes from thrift shops. And it was something that I wasn't experienced with, but I went ahead and would go with him. And so, yeah, we found this real treasure one time, and I'm so glad we did, because I remember seeing these, I think it was back in the 90s, and they were just tremendous. And I know that I don't think I'm interested in knitting an all over colorwork sweater. And so it was so nice to find one that was in such good shape. So yeah, highly recommend. Check it out. They're an incredible resource for sweaters and for yarn, and for getting yarn out of sweaters, used sweaters too, which some people do. So that's all I have for acquisitions. And so stash management. So I'm continuing to use up yarn. I'm at about, I'll put up the little graph here, but basically I have covered about what would be, I'm doubling what I have to cover. That is, I don't just have to match what I'm bringing in. I'm trying to cover twice as much. I'm trying to get twice as much out as I bring in. And I'm about 44% there, for almost 45% there now. So I'm definitely going to be requiring myself to do some destashing at the end of the year, I'm sure. But I'm going to continue to see how much I can avoid in the projects I complete through the rest of the year. But again, so there'll be a substantial giveaway, and I'll figure out how I want to go about that once I get there and everything. So I'm going to try to be a lot more judicious about this next year. And so that brings me to trying to kind of get rid of yarn in order to meet my budget. And so I thought that folks might be interested in this. This is a Hue Loco yarn, and this is from the Backyard Chicken collection. So this colorway is Black Australorp. And so, yeah. And so what I like to do is pick a keyword for people to mention in their comments. And I would just say chicken would be a pretty straightforward word to use. And so please mention anything about a chicken, and you will be have an opportunity to receive this beautiful sock set. It's actually got 2 minis with it. And so yeah. So mention a chicken, and remember, do not mention giveaways. We do not want the scammers showing up. And so just talk about a chicken, or mention anything in any way, shape, or form, and you'll be up for this skein of yarn. So that is the giveaway for this time. So let's see. So that is all the main coverage. The interesting thing is to see I'm already up to $421 on the channel. So I'm hoping we'll be able to do, it would be so cool to be able to do another charity giveaway before the end of the year. And so I have to pick out a charity and everything, but I would love to do another $100 donation to charity before the end of the year. So we'll see how that goes. So now on to the sort of non-knitting related stuff. I've been sharing favorite videos here for a while, and so I thought I would share a video from the channel, and the channel name is off-putting. I'll say that. It's I feel like it could be better named, although I don't know what I would call it. But the name of the channel is Fascinating Horror, and what it is they do these very calm, kind of measured, and very detailed, like mini documentaries about little disasters that have happened. And I love the calm form of delivery. I love all the details, all the information about people. You get direct accounts from people, as far as reading from their letters and what they said about the experience at the time and everything. And so it's just a fascinating, as the channel would say, to watch. And so the one I thought I'd share was the Eschede train disaster that happened in Germany. He's got a documentary for that. So I'll put up the image and the link. And so I really, like when this channel's videos come up, I watch them as soon as they come up every time. Hey, Odo, got a visitor. Come here, come here. Oh, big stretches. And so that's the video favorite for this week. And so then on to what I'm watching. I'm sorry, I'm leaning over scratching Odo right now. I am continuing to watch Foundation over again with my friend Dana. And so we're really enjoying that. That's a great science fiction about this huge, kind of multi-planet empire that's being headed up by the genetic dynasty, where basically a guy who became emperor just cloned himself to be emperor, same guy forever, emperor forever. And that's really, there's just some interesting aspects. Robots were eliminated. There was a huge robot war at some point in the past, and so they're supposed to be non-existent and that kind of stuff. But there's some interesting secrets going on there. And you've got a group of people. Basically, it centers around the foundation, and the whole idea behind the foundation and the mathematician that was in charge of that is to try to, they know that the collapse of the empire is coming, and they don't want the civilization to be in the dark ages. They think they can shorten the amount of time that the civilization collapses and is able to recover, and so that's their purpose. And so it's an interesting dynamic and set of things to watch, and just a really good science fiction series. And so we've been enjoying watching that. She's also watching, I've already watched all of Severance, which is a series I really like. And so Dana has been binge watching that, and so we're discussing it when we get opportunities to. And the whole idea in that series is you're in a reality where people can have a procedure done so that their work experiences are separate from their home experiences. That is, so as soon as when they step into work, their memory stops, and the memory of basically an alternate person of who they kind of what they call an inside person begins. And when they leave, that inside person goes back, goes away, or kind of is switched over to the outside person. So, for example, all they remember is coming to the office and then leaving the office, and all the work is done by this alternate internal personality. And it's really all kinds of funky ideas there, and it's a really unusual series and gives you a lot to think about. And so, yeah, so we've been having fun discussing that. And I finished watching Gen V on Amazon, and it was an outrageous, over-the-top final, and it's about a world where superheroes were created by a corporation, and the corruption and kind of the abuse of power and everything that goes on there. And these were centered around students who have super abilities that are at a university, and it's pretty off the wall and over the top. And it definitely did all of that in the finale. So it might not be to everybody's taste, but I enjoyed it. Um, I had to pause watching The Last of Us. I was finding it to be kind of depressing. So I've set it aside for the moment. I couldn't watch it. So have to pick it up sometime later. Um, and as far as what I'm reading or listening to, I am continuing my way through the Civil War by Gary W. Gallagher. It's a set of lectures and from the Great Courses, and oh, it has been absolutely fascinating. And I really recommend the Great Courses. They have a great set of lectures on American history. They have another great this set of lectures, and lots of lectures on lots of subjects that are just absolutely so well done and so great. And this has just been, I just keep listening to this and just marveling at all the detail and all the things that happen and how different the Northern and Southern cultures were at the time and everything. And so really, he's a great lecturer and really worth listening to. And what I really enjoy in particular about his lectures is that and he talks about this. He says, you have people who wrote books like after the war saying what the war was all about. It says, or the things that were happening. But what you really have to do is read the letters and the accounts that happened at the time events were happening to find out how people are experiencing things and what life is like and what's going on in the day to day. And I really appreciate that. I think it really brings more grounded, kind of real presentation to what went on during the Civil War. So really good stuff. Now, what I'm still playing World of Warcraft and Peak with my sons. I play World of Warcraft with my brother, and I play Peak with my sons, and we have fun doing that every Monday and chatting. And in Peak, you're in a kind of a plane crash, and you have to help each other kind of escape. You climb over these mountains, and it's very fun and very funny and stuff. So we have a blast doing that. I did pick up Mario Galaxy for my Switch, Switch 2 and everything. So yeah, just regular. I game a lot during the week, and so those are the things that are consuming my time that way. And then, oh, I had a couple people ask about my husband and my weight loss. I would say we've both combined or each lost about 40 pounds now. He's getting pretty close to having lost 40 pounds. And so I had a couple of questions about that in the comments. So I thought the easiest thing to do would be write up a document on what we're doing, and I'll share the link in the show notes and everything for anybody who's curious. But it's pretty boring. It's basically eat less and move more, but 80 to 90% eat less because that is really the biggest part of losing weight is eating less. And so I have written some notes in it, and I'll continue to add to that. I want to write about a couple of things like I think the biggest way my husband has lost a lot of weight is he stopped drinking anything with sweetness to it. He was drinking sugar pop, sugary soda, drinking sweet tea, drinking limeade, drinking chocolate milk. And so he cut that out 100%. And so I think he was consuming maybe close to half his calories in sweet drinks. And I think the same thing can happen with smoothies and stuff like that. So, and of course, big fancy coffees with lots of stuff added to them and everything. I think they can be a huge amount of calories that you don't realize. But he's also cut back. We've shifted, again, all this is in the document. Most people might find this boring, but we've shifted more towards protein and veggies and fruits and away from starches and sweets. And so, and I am exercising pretty consistently. He should be picking up on that soon. Like right today, he's out we have a small cabin in a forest near Athens, Ohio, and it's inherited. It was, I don't think we could ever buy anything like this, but he's out there and he will hike around the countryside and everything because this happens to be in the middle of a state forest. It's a piece of private land in the middle of a state forest, a very unusual situation. But it's really a neat place. I joke with my sons that if the zombie apocalypse happens, that they're come there to come meet us there. But yeah, it's pretty cool. And so he's out there. That's his physical activity. He goes out there and walks around. So yeah, so I've documented some of that, and I'll continue to add to that document and everything. So I think that's pretty much everything. I've got this dog demanding attention. Let me see if I can pick him up. Hey, Odo, come here. Come here. Let me pick you up. Okay. Oh, yes, you're such a sweetie. Oh, can you see? Oh, there he is. What's out there? What's out there? But yeah. Oh, yes. You're such a good dog. All right. So I hope you're loving the weather. If it's getting cooler where you are, I know you're getting warmer in the southern hemisphere, but we're enjoying the beginning of sweater weather up here. Next week, I'll be going to Ghost Ranch in New Mexico, so I'll be spending 4 days there, and so we'll be enjoying that. So I'll do an episode a week. I'll be on my same schedule for my episodes and everything, but looking forward to that. And so I hope you are experiencing kindness in your life and giving a lot of kindness in return and taking good care of yourself. And I hope you are above anything, well, not above anything else, but I hope you are also enjoying your knit.